All right, I wish to acknowledge that this meeting is taking place on the unceded territory of the Coast Salish people. Tumtumay-Waiton or Balcarres is home to an ancestral village of the Tsleil-Waututh Nation. We're thankful to conduct our work within their territory. So I'll call the meeting to order and looking for an approval of the agenda. So I'm looking for a mover and a seconder, please.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Bruce Drake moving and
Second.
Lisa Wilder seconding. So the motion's in front of you. Any discussion? Okay, call the question then. In favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, it carries. Thank you. Adoption of the minutes, regular council meeting, December 7th, 2020. Looking for, again, a mover and a seconder.
Carolina moves.
Carolina Clark moving
Second.
and John Snell seconded. Any discussion?
Ted Supper.
Okay, then I'll call the question. In favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And it carries. Okay. So number 4, delegations and presentations. We have no items. Going on to number 5, reports, and we'll turn to Lorna Dysart to review.
Yes, Your Worship, the purpose of this special council meeting tonight is to have a strategic planning discussion with council on agenda items that will go forward to the February 22nd regular council meeting. And the reason for this is because of the by-election, a lot of items haven't been dealt with, and council would like to strategically decide a suitable order for moving forward with items for the next agenda at this time. And so I would start on the draft agenda that you have in your package with item 5.1. And that would be a verbal update from Chris Boyd, our engineering consultant. If he would have a written report, it would have to be here by tomorrow, but if that's available, that would be included. But the deadline for the council agenda to get it out on time with our new procedure bylaw, which is Thursday, it would have to be here tomorrow. So I would call on council and ask if you would like item 5.1 to be on the February 22nd agenda.
I would.
Yeah, and I'll second that.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we got a mover and a seconder. Any discussion on that?
Just a comment, just a quick comment, if I may. I guess, yes, you know, it's clearly from the work we've been doing for the past 2 years, at least for myself, the water is, it would be the water system and looking into the water system, it's right now, it would be my priority number 1. So, so any reports that Chris has, either written reports or verbal reports, I think it's good to get it ASAP, so the water committee also can carry on with their work. Thank you, Lorna.
Yeah, I have one question, if I might.
Sure.
I
Go ahead.
notice it's intended to be a verbal update. Is there a reason why it's verbal and not a written update?
If he doesn't, if the information that Chris Boyd is seeking hasn't been provided to him yet, he would only give you a verbal update on the status. If he has received the information he's seeking, he would prepare a written report.
Okay, thank you.
And Bruce here.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you through the chair. Yeah, so the one of the questions that I think people would be interested in knowing would be precisely what directions Chris has been given in terms of his work program, and that is something that I assume we've given to him in writing. So perhaps that is something we could have on the agenda.
Yeah.
I think we all know there's this issue with the District of North Vancouver, and I appreciate, as has been explained to us several times, that obviously we have no control over the speed with which they can complete the work we've asked them to do. But I would like to at least know that these are the issues that in fact he has been tasked with, because there are some others that I just don't know whether he's making progress on them or not. And I appreciate I can engage that orally and will at the next meeting, but I think it would be helpful if we had that.
Okay, good. I will take care of that.
Okay.
Are we going to vote on these, or is that enough that we have a mover and seconder since this is a strategic planning session?
Yeah, so if, I mean, we could look to, that's been added as a 5-1. So we've got,
Yes.
if the intent is we've got them on the table, we'll look to, we can either do them seriatim, so do the one that we just completed, or we can go through. So what's the pleasure of the council? You want to do them separately, each one, move it through by motion, or do you want to?
It doesn't matter to me as long as all of these are there.
Okay, well, let's keep proceeding through, if that's all right. So
Yeah.
if we get to the point where there's discussion about not having an item on, then let's proceed to then go back and pass what's there and then move forward one at a time. Okay?
Great.
So all right, for the sake of the meeting. So, and then back to our Chief Administrative Officer. Thank you, Lauren.
Okay, so now I'll go to item 5.2, and a copy of that report was included. And this is a report that is coming out of a recommendation from the auditors. And that was that more clarification and a better breakdown be given for how funds are allocated. For example, for major road networks as opposed to non-major road networks. And in the past, a certain percentage of the allocation of public works, for example, was given to a certain project. But the change is now that staff are actually tracking their hours working on specific items. And so what the financial consultant is providing with is council report on the changes to internal cost allocations.
Right. So, all right, thank you for that report. And council, anybody would like to discuss that? Any thoughts, questions?
Do you want it moved, Jamie?
Yeah, we can, sorry,
I'll-
move it.
I'll move that we include it in the agenda for the next meeting.
Okay.
Second
And a
that.
second. So Drake moving, Councillor Drake moving, and Councillor Wilder second here. So
Yeah,
it's open
good.
for discussion now. John, did you had your?
No, I'm fine with 5.2 as suggested by.
Okay, any other discussion?
I guess it would be, but I will have some questions, but only when Ken is in the room, which means on the 22nd. So
Right,
Sure.
Yeah.
And that's fair. Mhm.
okay,
Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah, further to that, if I might, and obviously Ken would anticipate, but I'd be very interested in an explanation as to the practical impact of doing this.
Right.
One, and a second, I'm impressed that we're tracking time to 1/10 of a percentage point, but I appreciate that's what financial people may want. I've managed information systems, not many manage 0.1%.
Okay, thank you. Yes,
Right.
I will pass that along.
yeah. And the sense of this is to decide what we want to move forward. So I think it's actually
Exactly.
both counselors indicating that at the appropriate time, when the person's in the room, that's the time we'll have a more in-depth
course.
discussion. Yeah. And, okay,
Okay. The next proposed item for the agenda for February 22nd would be council indemnity increase. And council, there is a policy in place with regard to council indemnity increases. And this normally would have occurred last fall, and it did not take place because of the by-election. And the policy is that the October CPI for or the yearly CPI for Vancouver up to October is what the council indemnity increase is based on. And I believe in this report, it's 0.8%. And so this report would, it's actually overdue according to the policy, and that would go forward to council on the 22nd for first 3 readings. It's a bylaw.
Okay,
You need a mover?
yep, looking for a mover and a seconder. So Carolina Clark moving and
I'll second that.
Lisa Wilder seconding. Thank you.
No.
Okay,
If I might, Jamie, yeah,
yes,
appreciate this, the unique circumstances, number one, and two, that this is a non-controversial issue. But I do, as a matter of principle, I don't like the idea of reading anything for a second and third time in a single meeting, just because as a general rule, I think anybody who misses a council meeting shouldn't come back to find something being passed. When they've missed a council meeting, they should have to miss a pair of them to be unaware that something's about to be, reconsidered and finally adopted. Now, if I understand Lorna's introduction, I presume she's tried to tailor this such that there's no impact in terms of the annual stipend that people receive. I would just suggest that this is basically worth 1 latte a month to me at 0.8%. So I'm quite happy to wait and just not be in a position where we're moving something 3 readings in one sitting.
okay, so any speakers on that point? We'll take that, and then if there's others generally on that. So
Yep.
Carolina, I saw your hand go up.
Not on these,
Oh, not on this?
on the idea it's on the idea of 3
Oh.
readings in one.
Okay, well, yeah, go ahead. Thank you. And I'll watch for other people.
Okay, so thanks, Bruce, for bringing this up. I think, it was something that that I expressed concerns very early on council when we first tried to introduce the parking bylaw to become a resident-only parking throughout the whole village. Was never being in the gallery, and even being on council, I was never a big fan of doing so many readings in one night. And it's something that I expressed back then, maybe a couple of years ago. So I thank you for bringing this back up, Bruce, but I would ask council if we could, going forward, for every new bylaw introduced to council, for us to take our time and do only 1 reading per meeting. And that is for any new bylaw. Okay, I'm not putting a motion on the floor. I'm just asking for a consensus if we can get into one night. When it comes to amendments of bylaw, or if it's a bylaw that for some reason we need to rush through to pass for any reason, or if it's something that council needs, that council feels at the time that we should do the 3 readings in one night, then I would say absolutely, if there's a good reason for it. But for every new bylaws, and even important amendments to existing bylaws, I would prefer to really take our time with this, because I think, the outcome will be better. And it's for the sake of transparency as well. And I'm not saying that I understand that this is normal in other municipalities. It's normal. It's the way to run government. You do 3 readings in one night, and then the 4th reading and adoption in the second meeting. But I would really appreciate if we could do 1 reading at a time and go from there. So we, like Bruce said, it gives the public more chances to jump in. It's something that I'm sure the committees would appreciate as well. I'm sure the tree committee would appreciate, for when the tree bylaw finally comes back to the table, for us to really take our time. So the village, not just council, but also the residents, can go through in great detail. So yeah, I would like to hear comments from my other council members on this, please.
Sure.
I tend to agree with Bruce. I think there are going to be issues that one can get through all 3 readings in one evening. They're going to be simple and straightforward, and others that have greater ramifications throughout the village that will need as many readings as is necessary to get it done efficiently.
And I would just comment that that's fine as long as council is aware that if you give 1 reading per council meeting, sometimes it will take up to 2 months or more. If you have
Absolutely.
a hearing, it'll be more than 2 months to pass any legislation. That's all, but that's fine if that's what you
Fair
choose.
comment.
Okay, so I'm seeing, thank you, Lorna, and Bruce Drake, I'm seeing you next, and I'm watching for anyone else.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think my personal disposition is, and I tend to think of this in practical terms. So as I said earlier, if in my opinion, you shouldn't be surprised by something on the table if you just miss a single meeting. If you manage to miss 2 and only turn up at the 3rd one, then I don't have nearly as much sympathy for you. And for me, that translates into saying, I'm quite happy to do 2 readings when it first comes forward, a 3rd one 2 weeks later, and then a final after that. And that's a little different than Carolina, who's suggesting, she would prefer to see 1 per meeting. And so I'm just saying, I'm comfortable taking 3 meetings. In other words, a month and a half at maximum speed, as Lorna is saying. If you had regularly scheduled meetings every 2 weeks, it would be roughly a month and a half before something that would go through that was not controversial. The only thing I would add is that even given a habit of doing multiple readings, council hasn't been shy about just deferring matters. And of course, that also, if you have a controversial issue, that also can slow the process down and allow people to express their views. So I guess back to my initial point, I was only objecting to creating a situation where something could pass in just 2 meetings. And I would more or less reverse the priority. If someone can give me an exceptionally good reason why we ought to deal with it in 2 meetings, I would listen to it. But I think as a matter of course, we should think in terms of 3.
Okay. So we've got, in terms of positions, Carolina, probably a few more meetings. And
Yes.
Bruce in the piece. Any other? No, Carolina, go ahead.
Thank you. If I may add something. Yes, when I said 1 reading per meeting, I was, I had it in my head specifically the tree bylaw, because I think that one we would need more. I'm okay with doing throughout 3. I guess it all really depends on the policy that you're trying to pass or the bylaw that you're trying to pass. Again, I would say something like the tree bylaw, I would really like to take our time and do 1 per meeting, but any other bylaw, I would be good doing throughout 3 meetings instead of 2 or 4, right? So.
Okay. So you want to, one of the pieces we're hearing is not the quickness, but the slowing it down to, I'm hearing to, in terms of when people are away, but also when people that are following the meetings come. So, and I think part of that is the piece about making sure that if council's feeling that there are parts where more input is needed, that can occur. So, and I think our chief administrative officer is doing what we want good CAOs to do, to say, that's a good piece when you have that range, but here's the effect, particularly if they're ones that no one on council or maybe no one in the community says this is one. I'm not talking the specific one, but a bylaw that probably could go through quicker. So do we want to bring it to ground tonight, or do we want to have it as a piece where we come back and find out where we are? I'm fine, Bruce.
Yeah, I would prefer to amend maybe it's just a matter of providing advice to Lorna, because I mean, it's getting pretty detailed here. But I guess I would just be more comfortable if what we had on the agenda at our next meeting was first and second reading in this case. The others not. I mean, I'm not asking for a policy for council. I'm just telling you what my preferences are. And I think Caroline and I are reasonably close on this.
Yep.
And obviously, you know, depending on the issue, if we're well informed, we'll know which issues are sensitive and which ones might benefit from a little slower process.
Sure. For the purpose, oh, sorry, Caroline.
Yep, go ahead. Thanks.
Me or Lorna?
Yeah,
Okay.
I would just say we'll go ahead, Caroline, and then we'll go back to Lorna, if that's okay for both of
Just
you.
a quick comment that I feel in the obligation of making is that I hear a lot of concerns about, oh, local government takes forever to get everything done. I hear a lot of concerns saying, hey, you guys are through something, you know, and I would like this to go slower. So in this case, I understand both arguments. Yes, when you're in local government, things obviously take longer. The laws are different than a private business, absolutely. And you have a board to decide instead of just one person. So I just want to, you know, point it out that yes, it will take longer, right? And that's the idea exactly, is to take longer. And I'm sorry to the ones that think that everything takes so long. So this will just take a little longer, but I think it would be for benefit, again, not just for council, but also for the residents. Thank you.
Okay, Lorna?
I was just going to say, Your Worship, that I am, if council is ready for this to go on the next agenda, it would come back for the first two readings.
Okay, good.
Good.
Yeah, thank you very much. And any other comments on generally, or are we fine with that one? We're good? Oh, Caroline?
Good, we're fine.
Asking if we are we taking comments from the gallery? I don't see anybody with their hands raised, but.
Yep, we can. There may be people who have comments on this.
Nobody has their hand raised.
Yeah.
So shall I move on to the next one?
Yes, is that all right with
Jim
people?
Chisholm just raised his hand.
Sorry, who did? Oh.
Oh,
okay.
sorry, I didn't see the raised hand.
I don't see it. Where?
Yeah, Jim Chisholm has his hand up on the left
Yep.
side of his screen, top left.
Yeah. Just-
Or Sherry.
Just give me a second.
You are muted, Sherry.
Yeah.
No,
Oh, there I
sorry.
am now.
Oh, you're on now? Thank you.
Good. I was wondering, what is 5.2 that you passed? What was that with regard to? It was the first item, I think.
Oh, it actually turned out to be the second item, correct?
Oh,
Oh, but that's okay. So you're referring to the changes in internal cost allocations?
oh, is that what it was?
I
Yeah.
believe it was. So I believe there
Oh.
was an item 5.1, Sherry, that went in ahead,
Okay,
which was about a report from our engineer being
Okay.
verbal or written, depending on some timing. But let's go to the CAO to just confirm that, to make sure you get that piece.
Yes, 5.2 was the internal cost allocations, just a different way of tracking staff time.
good. Thank you so much.
Recommendation from the auditor. Okay,
Thank you, Sherry.
so item 5.4 is a report from the chief election officer that I will be providing the overview on. And it is just a summary of the activity that took place during the by-election and the result. It's a common report, a normal report that's written after any type of an election. So summary will just be coming forward to council for information.
Okay,
Okay, so is everyone okay with that going on the agenda?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
okay.
And then item 5.5 is Brooke Cooney, who are our planning consultants, have provided a summary of their year in review of the work, the items that they've worked on for the village. And that will be coming forward for council information.
Okay,
Okay.
Council, you've seen that? Everybody comfortable? Carolina?
Yes, so on item 5.5, first I'd like to thank Lorna and all staff. This is really helpful to have summaries like that at the end of the year, prior to budget season, so we know exactly where we needed the consultants for. So I think this is going forward. I would love to see this every year because it's very helpful. But on item number 1 here, and this is a concern that I have because I know there was some talk around this. So on item number 1 on 5.5, it says council related items. And number 1, it says amendment to building and plumbing bylaw. The first point, the first bullet point says response to a motion by council. The second bullet point, it says that an amendment was done to our building and plumbing code by law to eliminate the requirement for a property to connect to the village water system. This is not correct. The requirement was to eliminate the idea behind that motion, and I was the one who brought that motion to the floor. It was to take that requirement out in case of renovation, and this is just for existing owners. So I understand that the reason behind this motion was that when the water system got put in, I understand, I don't know, I wasn't there, but I hear that a lot of people said, listen, the government back then gave us the option to stay on our wells. And we would like to do that. If we've been here forever, we want to keep on our wells if we're doing a renovation. So by saying this, that it eliminates the requirement for a property to connect to the village water system, it's wrong because we still require them to connect to the village water system upon a sale of the property. And that is
Councillor Clark, sorry, I will have that corrected. I will add that in that it was just for major renovations. So
okay.
When the report goes to council next week, I can have that fixed. Yes,
I wanted to make
absolutely. Thank you for that. Mhm.
Okay, so
because,
Council,
yeah.
okay,
there's some-
so I've got a hand up and I've got Deborah Strzok.
Oh, hi. I didn't realize I was unmuted. With regards to the Brooke Pooney item, do you have a list of all of the items that they have been working on? That's my first question. And my second question is just with regards to what Councillor Clark brought up. Oh, it slipped my mind. It's okay. I'll get back to it. So just the first.
Yes, through your worship.
Yep, thank you.
To Deborah Strzok. Yes, that memo does list the items that the Pooney Group were working on, that they worked on in 2020.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay,
So, Council, would you like that item to go on to the agenda for February 22nd?
Absolutely for me.
Yes, yeah.
2,
Yes,
3. John? You're good with it going on to the 22nd?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank
that's
you.
fine.
Okay, thanks very much.
Okay, thank you. And your worship, item 5.6 was an item that was deferred in March of 2020 by council. And there has been interest expressed in bringing back the short-term rental accommodation report. And so the motion that would come forward on the 22nd is a motion to lift that item from the table. And then following that motion, it would be brought back to the next council meeting after that.
Right, okay. Good.
And I-
So
Yes, we'll go with John, please.
Yes, now, is this an appropriate time to bring up any issues in connection with that? Or does it have to be done at the appropriate meeting? Because there are 1 or 2 issues that I see on the corporate policy 210 that we're looking at.
that would be appropriately discussed at that meeting.
At that time, okay.
Yeah, so the idea here is to get the council to be able to make, as part of a revised strategic plan, to say they would like this item to go forward. So
Yeah.
what our chief administrative officer, it's actually will really look forward to you and others. If there are things, that's when the detailed discussion will happen at the meeting it ends up at. Does that make sense to you, John? So,
That's fine. I'll save it till then. Thank you.
yeah, and we'll look forward to when you do bring it up. Thank you.
Jamie?
So
Sorry, sure.
I'm gonna go to Councillor Clark and then to Councillor Drake. I think I
Good.
saw the hands in those order. May just be my eyes.
Thank you. So Lorna, just a quick question on this. On the last meeting that we spoke about this before being deferred, there was quite a bit of feedback, not just from the gallery, but also from council. So when this comes back on the 22nd, will that feedback from that meeting, when this was deferred, going to reflect whatever you bring on the 22nd?
I could include the minutes from that, but we do not record discussion, only action. So only the motions, generally with a very brief summary, are included in minutes discussion. However, people would be welcome to go back and look at the videos that are online for those council meetings and review the discussion.
Okay, so my point is, so those people, including council, that gave the feedback on that meeting, so we need to give the same feedback when this comes back, right? Because nothing was done to the draft that you had prior.
That's correct.
Deferred. Because there was a very specific recommendation on those set of minutes when this was deferred. Make it a minimum of 2 nights stay instead of 1 night stay. So I just wanted to make sure that this will reflect, and there's also a lot of feedback from council and from the gallery, specifically Don Reed on this. So regardless, I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
So I'll add my name to the list after Bruce Drake, if I could. Thank you, Councillor Clark.
Okay, thank you.
First, yeah, I agree with Carolina. Secondly, an administrative issue. I'm happy to see it on the agenda. I'm glad we brought it back. But this is a sufficiently complex case that I certainly wouldn't want to see more than 2 readings in one meeting. So again, we're going 1, 2, 3 in this. So I just ask that it be just the first 2 readings and that we be willing to engage a little extra time in this, because it is quite a significant step for the village. Overdue, but still very significant. I would also note, as you raised, Lorna, that the fact that we now have video of meetings, I think is an extremely useful resource. So if people are curious about what was said or what was raised or want to refresh themselves on that, that's just a magnificent resource. They can go back and watch the meeting and watch that discussion. And I would just also suggest that when people are making reference to that, it could be helpful to cite the time on the video where you would see the exchange take place. It saves a fair bit of time. So thank you.
Okay, Mayor Ron.
Yeah, so my understanding, and just to clarify, because I wasn't at that meeting, but Councillor Clark brought up some things about specific feedback from the gallery, specific feedback by at least one councillor, as I understand it, maybe more. But the motion that went forward, and I'm looking for clarification, was a motion to defer that did not provide instructions for anything to occur.
That's correct.
And that happened at a meeting, was it in March 7th or
Yes.
something? So the effect of that was to simply move that motion and have it go away until someone came and put it back on the table. Is that correct? And I wasn't there, but I'm wondering if that was the essence where Councillor Clark had some things I believe she may have added, and she's getting on, so I'll let her speak to that. But it was clearly a motion without instruction, so staff wasn't instructed to go away and do things and bring it back. It was just a motion that it was off the table of council. Is that
Correct. And if at a previous meeting, there were instructions to make an amendment to it, I can follow up and see if that amendment was made.
Right,
prior
okay,
to it being deferred, yes.
okay, perfect. And I'll go now to, I'm seeing Counselor Clark again.
Thank you. Just to respond to your point, I have the minutes in front of me. It was from the meeting on March 9th. The item was 5.2. So the first recommendation was to that short-term rentals accommodation and bed and breakfast accommodation corporate policy 210, item 5, length of stay be amended as follows. Open, so I'm going to quote the bylaw now. 5.2, the minimum length of stay is 2 nights. That was carried unanimously. And then followed to that, there was a motion to defer, which I think back then was a miscommunication from council, because I don't think, at least my intention was not to defer it. So I apologize for that. So that amendment was carried and then followed by deferred. So I don't know how you're going to work that out, but
Well, I can look back and see, because that other previous motion was carried. So we would make sure that amendment was put into the report that we would be bringing back on February 22nd, if you would like it back on that.
I actually believe it is, Lauren.
Okay, good.
It's in there. I think you've modified it.
Thank you, Bruce.
perfect.
Yeah.
Okay,
I have one comment on it,
okay.
and I don't know if this is to, and Lorna, through the chair, Lorna, please correct me if I'm wrong. If this just gets brought up at the next meeting, but on the policy 2.5, it says in here, commercial insurance, commercial general liability. We don't have commercial here. It's business insurance. It's different from commercial insurance.
Yeah, we can look into that. That would
Okay.
come up with the report, yeah.
Good catch, Lisa.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Wilder. Any other thoughts, comments, observations?
If not, we would put that on the agenda for February 22nd then. Thank you.
Okay, and is there consensus for that going on?
Yes.
Absolutely, for me, yes.
Good, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you. And the next item that is on the proposed agenda, draft agenda for February 22nd, is the notice of motion from Councillor Wilder with regard to new docks in Bedwell Bay. And this notice of motion actually should go forward to the next meeting, but it could always be put off if council so wishes. And Councillor Wilder did prepare a report for that notice of motion, and it is attached to the agenda.
okay.
Any
Thoughts?
comments from
Yeah.
council?
I don't know if Councillor Wilder would like to speak to your motion. I would love to see that come forward next meeting.
I would like to see it come forward. That's just my own personal opinion on this one. It's there's been lots of chat, and I think it's going to have to be dealt with in the OCP as well, which is so that way it'll be already on the books here, whether it's a yay or nay, so that when the OCP committee is formed, they've got some background.
Mhm.
As we know right now, though, still a moratorium on Bedwell Bay from the ports.
Mhm.
But this is making a change within our own policies.
That's correct. Mhm.
Oh,
I believe there's a hand up.
yeah, I just, thank you. Let me go to it. Sherry. Let me just get, oops. Oops,
You're muted, sure.
you should be.
I think I'm on now, yes.
Yeah, you're on now. Go ahead, thank you.
This thing about the docks in Bedwell Bay, will there be any kind of public meetings before the gavel is dropped on this new suggestion for handling the docks? How it's going to work?
in specific to the motion that,
Yeah,
that Counselor Wilder's one specific to that?
yes.
Yes, okay.
So will there be any public input before you decide how you're going to handle it? I understand there's going to be some changes about private docks as opposed to group. And, you know, I guess really we want to know how many people are waiting to get on docks and how many docks aren't full and how many changes there'll be with the person across the street on Main, whether or not they apply or, you know, I think there'd be a lot of questions before decisions by council will be made.
So your question, Sherry, is whether there's going to be some public consultation.
Yes.
Yeah, that's in essence. So do you, Carolina?
No, I'm sorry, you can go ahead and answer that. I just wanted to make a comment on this subject after.
Okay, so Lisa, do you want to comment on this in terms of public consultation?
I think that's something that we can talk about at the February 22nd meeting, and that's something we can ponder in between. I don't see it's a bad idea. I just know that there's the way that the docks, like when they used to always all be single docks, and then when the group docks came in and they put it in the middle there. But now we're built out. We are just built out, and there is very little opportunity for anyone else in the village to be part of the bay. And I'd like to see that opened up. And the people that I've spoken to, they all think it's a wonderful idea. I've talked to the ports. It's right on their mandate. It just follows their guidelines and their visions. And I'm not asking or suggesting even that any existing single dock, not even suggesting that any existing single dock that's already there change unless they want to. If they want to.
Everybody that joined us tonight, and I've got a hand up. Sherry?
Yeah, no, it's Jim.
Oh, Jim. Okay.
Just to follow up with a comment that John Snell made earlier about written reports. I was wondering if it would be possible, because on the water committee, I'd like to see a copy of the minutes of the meeting with North Vancouver as to what was requested of them to do for the village. And if we could get a copy of that, it would certainly help us. And in writing, I'd like to have that before our next meeting. Something we can look at, not wait for it to be done at a council meeting. So if we could request that.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do, Jim, is ask Councillor Drake to respond on that if he can.
Well, I mean, I think it makes good sense. I haven't seen a written report on that. I certainly would have at that meeting sought details as to that discussion. I think, well, maybe I can respond. Sorry, Jamie, you're going to go through councillors on their areas of interest, or are you?
Well, why don't we will do that. We
Yeah.
got a question. I didn't know where it was, so I decided to go to it.
Yeah.
So if you want to respond on this, and then we'll go around to the council committee representative.
Okay, well, I just on this item, I agree with Jim's suggestion. Anything, one of the problems that we have faced, and I understand the challenges associated with it, though, is getting documentation. So yes, it would be very helpful to know exactly what we've asked North Vancouver for and what we're waiting on them. And I think I have a general idea, but I have not seen any minutes from that meeting.
Well, would it be possible? Was it done with a Zoom meeting?
I'm sorry, we couldn't hear you, Jim.
I say, was it done with a Zoom meeting or just a telephone call?
So,
We'll look into it and get you the information.
so does that mean it wasn't a Zoom meeting?
Committee meetings weren't Zoom meetings, no. So it was prior to COVID.
Sorry, Lorna, this is the meeting with the District of North Vancouver that we're now awaiting their formal response on. I thought that had taken place after we were into COVID.
I did too.
Oh, not a formal meeting with North Van. We've only had conversations with them.
Okay,
Presumably.
Okay, then I think-
Municipalities are only working at half capacity. The large
I understand that.
municipalities.
It might be
I
helpful
can,
just.
I can
just to
tell
have it.
you what the request was from the Water Committee to DNB. I can show you that request,
Okay, and
what
and
they
then
were
just-
requested.
and then a report on basically what was discussed, right? And what we're awaiting from the District of North Vancouver. I mean, I think
Exactly.
Jim's question is a very good one.
Okay, so that sounds like we're working on an answer to that, and that's useful. So thank you, Jim, for that. And then counselors, you've got, does someone want to go first on any committee things that you want to report out or talk to? Bruce?
Yeah, I'll speak to my,
Okay.
I guess, the area that I'm particularly focused on is the work of the Water Committee. And as I've said before, I mean, I think it's a very good example of the type of extensive, relevant experience, but also skill sets that we can tap within the village. We have, from that committee and the work they've all done, we've had a number of very useful observations and certainly questions with respect to our system. I think anyone who's tried to follow this closely would be well served by reading the reports of that committee. I'm looking forward to our hosting a workshop on the water system and thereby helping to refine both the questions and the status of the issues that have been brought forward by the committee, but also to look at what sort of progress we've made on the preparation of a manual for the water system. There's an enormous amount of work to be done here, and I appreciate it's not going to be done in short order. And of course, the overriding concern we all have is water quality, which is an absolute issue with respect to potable water. But also the fact that we're trying to balance that assurance with our fire flow capacity. And it's not easy to work out where council should come down on that, but we need to have certain information before we can ask council to make a decision. And so I'm appreciative of the work people have done. I appreciate it's a challenging undertaking, and I'm learning a great deal from the process. So thank you, Jane.
Thank you, Councillor Drake. Did we have any other councillors that wanted to speak in regard to their committees?
Well, I'll say a couple things. There's been nothing for our committees that I sit on, Fair Cove and the revenue generation, because we were all in COVID. So there have been meetings, but I did sit on a number of council meetings, mayor council meetings when I was sitting as deputy for that short term, and TransLink meetings until such time. Now, Mayor Jamie Ross will take over. Most of those, we're talking about Transportation 2050. Most of the meetings, unfortunately, were in camera. So, and they were long.
And you can't tell us anything about them.
4-hour meetings.
Okay, so thank you, Councillor Wilder. Much appreciated, and we'll go to Councillor Clark now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Ross. I do have some things that I want to say, but I'll probably use the next meeting for that once it's public, which committees Belcarra is sitting on.
Right. Okay, good.
Thank you.
Good,
So
thank you.
my updates for the next meeting once we have that released.
Okay, good. Thank you very much then. Okay. We've been through the councillors. John, did you?
I've been fortunate of not headed up any subcommittees, so I can be quiet for the moment.
Okay.
I do wish to speak in a moment, though.
Okay, good, good. So let me know. So John, where on the agenda coming up did you want to speak? Do you want to?
I would
Under
like,
new business, your worship, that
Yeah.
would be under number 8. Mhm.
Okay,
I was
Good.
thinking more under 7.1.
Oh,
okay. So
And
that,
then I'd like to speak to the bylaw that you're,
That's just on the draft agenda. That's not on our agenda tonight.
okay,
Over to the next meeting for discussion.
okay. Okay, fair enough. Right,
That
because
makes
this is tied in also with the short-term rental issues.
We would have to have that at the next
We'll
meeting.
have that one at the same time. No, I see you separated it this evening. Because there was a number of issues to discuss on the short-term rental. And the amendment bylaw 557 was actually part of that package, but it's been separated this evening as a bylaw for discussion.
It's bylaw 576, your worship, and that has to do with removing the cost of sprinklers from the fees and charges.
No, I'm looking at the fees and charges bylaw 517. Attachment.
Which is the amendment bylaw number 576, your worship.
yes,
Is an amendment to the fees and charges bylaw to remove the cost of sprinklers.
okay,
But we brought back to the next meeting, so. Yeah.
okay. So it's not on for tonight. So John, we will get time to do it though, but just not tonight. Okay, so moving on to correspondence, proclamations, no items. Anybody has any? New business. Public question period. Not seeing any hands, either the new way or the old way. So I'll test again. Anybody from the public like to ask a question now? Okay, then I believe that we would move with the consent of the meeting to motion to adjourn.
I'll move.
Second,
Counselor Wilder moves. Counselor
second.
Clark seconds.
Yeah,
Okay, any discussion? Okay.
Everybody.
What's that?
I just like to thank staff and everybody in the gallery for being with us tonight. And thanks,
Okay.
Lauren, for the reports.
Okay, so we'll call that question so we can adjourn. So all in favor?
Aye.
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 Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Thank you for
joining
coming.
us.
Thank you for coming out.
Yep. Good night,
night.
everybody.
Thanks, Jamie. Great job.
Oh, thank you. Only with all the help from you folks. Much appreciated.